Greg Branos for the Coach Speak Index. What's up? What's going on? What a week. What a big week. NFL kicking off. The Coach Speak Index just announced that we will be launching a beat writer index. Hope to have that ready for the 2025 NFL draft season. This is going to be very big for fantasy football. I think in the same way that the Coach Speak Index has been big for fantasy football. So cannot wait to launch that. This train is rolling, baby. The only way that this train could stop is if Dame Judi Dench came to me and said, Greg, I want to spend the rest of my life with you, but you have to give up the Coach Speak Index. I'd have to say, okay, I give it up. It's bad luck to refuse Dame Judi Dench. She employs an army of henchmen. She calls the Denchmen. You do not want to mess with them, all right? So I will just let her make an honest man out of old GB. Speaking of man, do I have a sign-up offer for you? If you are not already playing on Underdog Fantasy, you can sign up with promo code CoachSpeak to claim a first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash, plus a free pick. Pretty nice stuff. I was looking at Underdog's Pick'ems today, and man, some really nice ones, and one just wild one, crazy. Could not believe my eyes. Rico Dowdle higher than 24 and a half rushing yards. I just stared at it for like an hour. It reminded me of the time I ate a special sweet tart and stared at a glow-in-the-dark Rick and Morty poster for 2 hours. But yeah, Rico Dowdle, higher than 24 and a half rushing yards. This is a guy who Dallas Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy said is one of the leaders there in that backfield. He's just recently talked up his 3-down capabilities. Sounds like a guy who is going to be on the field quite a bit in this running back by committee. All right, so he's not going to be a workhorse. That's fine. We know it's a running back by committee. He will get a good share of touches there. Mike McCarthy, a couple months ago, said, whether it's 2 guys or 3 guys, we like running back by committee with the guys that we have. They brought in Dalvin Cook. Dusty old man. Do not expect him to do much. Ezekiel Elliott, not getting any younger, because that is how time works when you're not Benjamin Button. So, can only get so much out of Zeke. Who's left? It's our guy Rico Dowdle. He's going to get some action. I mean, he gets what? Probably 7 carries, 8 carries. He can clear this. Come on now. All right. What else? Anything else to get out of the way? Oh, hey, join our Discord. If you're not in there already, you get every piece of information from every press conference from head coaches, offensive coordinators, general managers. About 40 hours worth of press conferences per week. And I eat it up like a mama bird, and then I regurgitate it to everyone, the nutrients to everyone else, the really good parts, all the parts that you need. I take the bullet for you on all the boring questions. This past offseason, there were like 20 questions about Jim Harbaugh's RV and how he was liking RV life, and 0 questions about their new rookie running back, Kamani Vidal. So I take the bullet for you on all the boring stuff. I know you don't have 40 hours per week to watch press conferences, but I do, because I made it my life. I've dedicated myself to press conferences. Press conferences are my blade. I've dedicated myself to the press conference. Okay. Yeah, jump in that Discord. A lot of crucial info on a daily basis throughout the year. There's like a 5-week period where there's no press conferences. But also have a nice little giveaway in there. I did 4 big underdog pick'em entries, and I am going to split the winnings from any of those to members, but you got to be a member by kickoff of the Baltimore-Kansas City game. All right, let's jump in. Let's do injuries real quick. Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin said that he is optimistic that rookie wide receiver Roman Wilson and running back Jaylen Warren could be available on Sunday. Tomlin has a 70% reliability rating on injury coach speak. So I am expecting those guys to probably suit up. Okay, Falcons tight end Kyle Pitts is dealing with a hamstring injury. Head coach Raheem Morris was asked if there was any concern, and he said, "Not for me." Morris added that Pitts had a hamstring a couple weeks ago, and it hasn't really affected him too much. Morris has a 75% reliability rating on injury coach speak, and he is more reliable on short-term injury coach speak. Once it gets to be a couple weeks out, a few weeks out, gets pretty hairy with Raheem Morris. But short-term, very good there. I expect Kyle Pitts to play in week 1. Head coach Kevin O'Connell of the Vikings said about Jordan Addison's status. Addison dealing with an ankle. O'Connell said he's doing better. I think Jordan's in a good spot, and I feel pretty good about him making the game. O'Connell has a 90% reliability rating on injury coach speak. I expect Addison to play in the season opener. Let's get into the coach speak clips. There are clips for just 2 positions this week. There are 12 running back clips and 4 wide receiver clips. We will begin with running backs, and we will start in a place that I know very well, a place where I spent most of my life, down in Carolina. This is head coach Dave Canales on the running back rotation and Miles Sanders.
Dave, I'm kind of curious what your strategy is going ahead with the running back. Obviously, Miles came in as a starter last year and then lost his job. Chuba took over. Are you the type that wants to use one guy to go, or multiple split carries? What is kind of How do you want to approach that at running back?
Yeah, there's value to both. So just talking to running backs over the years, there's value to letting a guy be out there and get the rhythm, to really start breathing, start seeing the runs, pressing it, feeling how the line's blocking on that day, And then there's a flip side of it where you have two really good backs and you just rotate them through, And if a guy has a couple of plays stacked together and has a nice long run, then you can get the other guy and you have fresh legs to be able to attack it that way. That's really the approach that we would hope for, to keep, Miles and Chuba just continuing to spot each other as we go through it. And of course, third downs as well, counting on those guys with protection and what they can do in the pass game. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. You've talked about Miles making up ground. I mean, how has he looked? I mean, now he had into week 1.
He's looked fantastic. He came into camp just with this focus and this seriousness about the way he's worked. He's really emerging as a leader. Chuba has as well. So we have great leadership coming out of that room. It's really one of the featured rooms on our team in terms of the character of what we're looking for. The guys that are out there are available, work hard, finish runs, and they kind of set the tone for what we're doing. So I'm really pleased with that group as a whole.
That is a very interesting clip there. At the beginning, he's saying, yeah, I think there's real value in having a guy just be out there, be in the rhythm of the game, basically a workhorse, a guy that's just like out on the field and he's in rhythm. And then he says, but what we're hoping for, and he kind of ties it to this current backfield of Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders is, all right, guy, kind of fresh legs, guys giving, nice breathers to each other. That's, the ideal. Not necessarily what they're going to do, but, maybe what they would like to do. But Dave Canales has this thing about, he wants his running backs to run angry running. And we know from him talking about Chuba Hubbard before and what an angry runner Chuba Hubbard is, that, it makes a lot of sense for them to give Chuba Hubbard just a bunch of this backfield work. But it might not be as clear of a path that we thought Chuba Hubbard would have in the first few weeks of the season with Jonathan Brooks on PUP out for these first 4 weeks. But it does sound like when Jonathan Brooks comes back and he's healthy, that you draft a guy there early in the second round to handle most of the work, to be your guy. It would be so, oh my God. Twitter would absolutely implode if Miles Sanders outscores Chuba Hubbard over these first 4 weeks. If Miles Sanders becomes a thing. He did sustain, I believe, a finger injury in practice today. And his status is, I don't know if I call it like up in the air, but there's a non-zero chance that he either misses or he's very limited for week 1. And that would be nice for Chuba Hubbard there. Okay. Tennessee. This is head coach Brian Callahan talking about, he's asked about one running back, and he does something that he's done the entire offseason, which is when he's asked about one running back, he talks about both of them. He brings the other one up. This is what he's done every time this has happened this offseason, except for, I believe, one time. Anyway, here's Callahan on that backfield.
Brian, back when you guys brought in Tony in free agency, was there a particular type of running back you were looking for to fit this system? And how good a fit has he been for what you wanted?
Perfect is probably the best way to put it. Between him and Tajay, they're exactly what we're looking for. They both have the ability to be kind of three-pronged players where they run it very, very well. They're very good in the pass game, and they can protect. and they do all three of those things at a very high level. And so I think we got two backs that I'm really excited to see and use. But they fit exactly what we're looking for in this particular brand of offense. And they both got explosive capabilities. They can both find lanes in the run game. They both run hard, even though they're not gigantic backs. They're big enough, and they run hard enough to, I guess is the best way to put it. They run with their pads behind them, and it's a good group. And they're going to be a huge part of our offensive success is how well those guys fit into the system. And like I said, they're both about as good as I could ask for a fit.
The idea of a back kind of gaining momentum as the game goes on with more carries, and then how do you then approach that as a coach when you're trying to get both guys their touches and changing them in and out throughout the course of the game?
Yeah, there's a game by game feel. There's guys get hot sometimes, but yeah, there's definitely styles of backs that need 20 plus carries, and they get better as the game goes on. That's not an abnormal rhythm for some runners. I don't think that our two runners need that in the same way because I think they're both really explosive. But yeah, let's say a guy starts to get hot and he's feeling it. Well, we'll just let him keep rolling, and we'll find other spots for the other guys to rotate. But they're still going to play both quite a bit, and I think they both know how to be a 1-2 punch on top of it. I think they both understand how that works and how effective it can be, and both keeping them fresh over the course of 17 weeks and keeping a defense a little bit off balance as well.
Okay, so the same stuff that we've been hearing this entire offseason from the Titans coaching staff of these two guys, Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears, completely interchangeable. They like it that way. They designed it that way. They signed Tony Pollard because his skill set is so similar to Tyjae Spears, and it doesn't matter, which of them is in the game. They have the full playbook available to them, and they're not tipping off defenses when a particular guy is out there. So this whole interchangeability, 1A, 1B thing, we've heard it all off season. And we've also heard what Callahan just said again about, there will be a hot hand element in play here. If a guy really gets rolling, what's the sense in taking him off the field at that point? Just this is a smart guy. He's got a smart staff, and they're going to be. We've heard them talk about the analytics of going for it on fourth downs. They know what they're doing. Pittsburgh Steelers. This one really freaked people out, man. This is head coach Mike Tomlin talking about their running back rotation.
Mike, at the running back position, do you guys have an ideal distribution of reps, in your heads, and how would maybe Jalen Warren's injury affect that in week 1 here?
It remains to be seen in terms of the impact of his injury or his availability. We got a week's work ahead of us. In terms of how we divide the labor up, man, that's going to be week to week. We got some really capable guys, and you throw CP into that mix as well. More than anything, I just love the demeanor of our running back room, man. These guys don't run away from confrontation. They run to it. That collective, those three guys, I'm really excited about. They're going to lead the charge for us in a lot of ways. That competitive component being a significant one.
That CP that Tomlin is referring to about throwing into the mix with Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, that CP is Cordero Patterson. Arthur Smith is going to do it again, man. And he has Mike Tomlin's blessing. It's happening. It happens every year with Cordero Patterson. Why? Got me Nancy Kerriganing over here. Mixing Cordero Patterson in. This is like when they put raisins into cookies. Like, why are you ruining this wonderful thing we had going here. Awful. Raisins and desserts is such just like a 1950s ass thing. It's awful. It's terrible. Like mixing in 58-year-old Cordero Patterson. I mean, this backfield was already going to be tough enough for managed leagues. You know, best ball. I mean, it still messes with best balls as well, depending on it. It just kind of sucks that Mike Tomlin is like publicly given this blessing, because there was this thing that's happened a couple times in press conferences this offseason where reporters would ask Mike Tomlin about, hey, how much like final input does Arthur Smith have on the offense? And Tomlin said, assistants make suggestions, head coaches make decisions. So I was hoping that Mike Tomlin would overrule Arthur Smith on Cordero Patterson shenanigans, but sounds like he has the blessing. I hope it's not too much. I mean, honestly, it could be like an average of 1.5 carries per game up to like several carries per game. If it's several carries per game, it doesn't sound bad, but to be siphoning that off every game, it's not good, man. All right. Let us move to Las Vegas. Here is head coach Antonio Pierce on running back Zamir White.
You guys showed last 4 games of the season with Zamir a stout running game. How important is that for that to kind of carry over day one against the Chargers?
Yeah, I mean, I think early on in the season, everybody wants to establish the run and stop the run. But I think for Zamir and our offensive line, it'd be good just establish what we want it to look like. Coming off the rock, the wide zone, hitting the edge, hitting it downhill. Zamir came back more physical, more explosive, bigger, stronger, faster. Didn't get a lot of touches in the preseason. It's just how it worked out because of the quarterback deal, but he'll have plenty of opportunities going forward.
Okay, so first of all, Antonio Pierce referencing that Zamir White didn't get a lot of touches in the preseason because of the quarterback deal, which is what I have talked about in recent weeks on my podcast, on other people's podcasts, about that wonky preseason usage that everyone got all twisted up about. Of, oh no, it's Zamir White got the same number of, or nearly the same number of snaps as Alexander Madison. This is going to be a split backfield. They're going to be trading off all the time. And no, I said that's because of this whole quarterback battle. They aired the ball out in that second preseason game, and it wasn't about trying to establish the run like the Raiders actually want to do in the regular season. Antonio Pierce wants to do two things: on defense, stop the run; on offense, run the ball, establish the run. And this is the second week in a row where he said Zamir White is going to have plenty of opportunities. Last week said, early downs, that is Zamir White. Antonio Pierce has a 90% reliability rating on usage and workload coach speak. I'm banking on plenty of opportunities for Zamir White this year. He will see north of 200 touches. He's their guy. He's their RB1. He is also, very importantly, their short yardage guy, their goal line guy. That's pretty important. How often do they get down to the goal line this year? Ooh, that's That's a tough one. But very underrated offensive line, like I've mentioned before. Really good offensive line. Not deep, but very good. And they do have some really good pass catchers. Quarterback situation, not great. Really good defense. Last year, when Antonio Pierce took over, or after he took over, I believe, they ended up as the 7th best defense in the NFL. This is a defense that will keep them in games, will keep things close. And when it's close, Antonio Pierce is going to run the ball. And when he runs the ball, it's going to be with Zamir White. Zamir White, who ran a 4.440 and is an absolute horse, who rides horses. What is a horse on a horse? Because a human was it human front, top, and then horse back, behind. Is that a centaur? Or is that a minute? Man, I have my mythical human horse stuff all mixed up. I got to hit the books on that. Anyway, he's a horse on a horse, and I'll bet on that. New York Giants head coach Brian Daboll on their new running back, Devin Singletary.
Brian, I know you tend to cater plays and schemes to the players' abilities, right? So what does Singletary do that's going to be different in this offense?
He's just a good running back. You can use him on all 3 downs. So whether that's running inside, outside, pass protection, routes, you don't have to sub him a bunch in terms of this person has this specific plays, this other running back has this specific plays. So I'd say he's an all-purpose back for us.
You knew him before he got here. Did you learn anything about him the last couple of months?
No, I've known him quite some time in this league, and he's consistent.
So Daboll before talked about his familiarity with Devin Singletary and Devin Singletary's familiarity with his offensive system. And it sounds like he will get a pretty good amount of work as the RB1 here. I'm very curious how much Tyrone Tracy will get mixed in. I think he's a really good running back. All right, maybe really good is strong. I think he's a good running back. I think he can be a productive running back for fantasy football, and he's very fun to watch. And I hope they give him a lot of opportunities. But I think it's going to be a lot of Devin Singletary. All-purpose back for us. Can use him on all 3 downs. Sounds like a guy who will be very involved for the New York Giants. Houston. Here is their head coach, DeMeco Ryans, on his red zone offense.
DeMeco, how important is you to run the ball better than last season, especially when you get down close to the goal line?
It's very important, John, to run the ball, right, to be good, a good red zone offense, right, you have to be able to run the ball, right? All offenses in the history of the league that have been really good in the red zone, they've been able to run the ball, right? And that's what it's going to take for us. Like, can we run the ball in to score in the red zone? The space gets limited when you try to throw the ball. There are a lot of tight windows. So we're going to rely, heavily on Joe and the offensive line to really set the tone in the running game.
This is a team who really wants to run the ball. We saw this a lot last season with Bobby Slowick, of how much they were just kind of stubbornly running the ball and eventually said, okay, the run's not working. We got to just let CJ Stroud do his thing. But if they have their way, and they have a healthy offensive line this year, which they didn't have last year, but we could see a lot of carries for Joe Mixon, who they absolutely love. And we can see them ride him in the end zone pretty early in the year. Let's say a couple months ago, I recommended Joe Mixon to lead the NFL in rushing touchdowns. I think it was 30-1. But I think that is very much in play. This is an offense who should be in the red zone a lot. They should be near the goal line a lot. And this is a coaching staff that is predisposed to wanting to run the ball. And they love Joe Mixon. They like this O-line. There's real variance there, right, of how many plays end on the 1 yard line or 2 yard line, that sort of thing. But Joe Mixon got a lot of red zone work in Cincinnati. I think that continues here. Again, whenever they talk about Joe Mixon, oh my God, you would think they were talking about like prime Barry Sanders. Just, they're goo goo gaga over Joe Mixon down in Houston. Will probably get a good amount of touchdowns this year for Mixon. Okay. Cincinnati. This is head coach Zach Taylor. And he's talking about their depth chart that was released.
Put Zach Moss as the number 1 running back on the depth chart. Is that an indication that he'll get more reps than Chase Brown, or are you still planning for it to be almost 50-50 split?
Yeah, you can ask PJ and Emily. My favorite thing in the world is talk about the depth chart, which I pay no attention to whatsoever. And we've got a lot of players that are all starters. It can depend on what personnel grouping we have on the field the first play of the game. So to me, it's meaningless. I know we have to do it. I put no time into it because I think we got a lot of players that are capable of being starting players for us. And same as guys that run out the tunnel. Sometimes that's a lot of unnecessary angst on my part. You know, we got many guys that could be fitting that role, and sometimes as a head coach, you just got to point to one and test them.
Okay, so don't pay attention to the depth chart. Put no time into it. Meaningless. But do pay attention to these comments from offensive coordinator Dan Pitcher, who on Zach Moss said, I view Zach Moss as an all-around player. He can run any scheme. You'll see Zach Moss's value more that live games are here than you've ever seen to this point. Okay, we didn't see much Zach Moss in the preseason. I don't think we saw him at all, did we? Also, and this is from Ben Baby, by the way, on Twitter, at Ben_baby. Dan Pitcher also had a comment on Chase Brown, the other running back in this backfield. He said, Chase Brown is building himself into an all-around player. Currently, he's a very explosive football player. Chase Brown is one of the fastest backs in the league. I think you'll see that on display. Okay. Zach Moss, all-around player. Dan Pitcher also said a few weeks ago about, Zach Moss does everything he's asked to do. He's always in the right place. Just a very reliable guy for them. And they've talked about this expanded role for Chase Brown, which I believe will happen. But they've also talked about him as more of a, hey, this is the explosive guy. This is the kind of like change of pace juice guy. So I have a really hard time seeing Chase Brown take over this backfield like a decent amount of people think. Could it happen? It could happen. Yeah. I'm not so cocky or brazen or just dumb to think that, oh, there's zero chance of this happening. Okay, yeah, he could. It's just tough. Okay, it's just tough for a running back who graded so poorly as a runner last season, who does not exhibit good vision. It's just tough to see that guy like really taking over a backfield. I can see the 50-yard screen touchdown to the house like happened that one time last year that we've all seen that clip of. But yeah, man, I'm just not a believer. I'm just not. He's really gonna have to prove it to me. I promise. I will watch these games and I will watch Chase Brown with an open mind, and I will. I'm not even gonna say I'll allow him to change my mind. Like, I'm gonna keep an open mind, and we'll talk about another running back here in a little bit that I'm keeping an open mind on. But just based on what we saw last year and what we saw in the preseason this year, it's just hard for a running back that has no vision to just suddenly, okay, now he's seeing everything perfectly. Now he's making the right instinctual decisions. It's hard. It's hard to overcome those bad instincts, to replace them with good ones. Yeah, when they get him out in space, when they get him rolling, yes, he has some real speed. He has some real juice. But that's just not going to happen that often. More often is going to be take a handoff, make the wrong decision, didn't get much out of it. Meantime, Zach Moss is plowing forward for threes of yards at a time. Green Bay. Here is head coach Matt LaFleur on Marshawn Lloyd.
How's Marshawn looking? I know Bucs with him.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll give him the week to watch him as he progresses. Certainly we're going to be smart with him, and he was limited today, but he's doing more and more, and we'll see where he's at.
Almost the same thing as a kicker. How do you have full trust in a guy who didn't get to go through a whole bunch of situations with you? Or did it all the OTAs? Is that enough to some extent in this limited training camp?
Yeah, I think as long as we're smart about what we're asking him to do, I mean, certainly we don't want to give him something that he's never done before. I think that's unfair to the player. I think you always got to, teach him, put him through it, and then have that confidence that he can go execute that in the game. So we will be smart with him, but we certainly won't give him anything that he's never done before.
Okay, so you have rookie Marshawn Lloyd, who missed a good deal of training camp with a hamstring injury and a hip injury. And Matt LaFleur is saying, basically, he's going to have to be eased in when he is active. And this is a guy who there were reports that he was going to go on PUP to start the season on IR. That didn't happen, but makes you think he was, pretty close to landing on IR there. And the way that they have been talking in their press conferences, Matt LaFleur, the head coach, offensive coordinator, Adam Stenavich, it sounds like Marshawn Lloyd probably not going to be available for week 1. Adam Stenavich last week made a comment about, how what will the workload be for Josh Jacobs? He said, well, Emmanuel Wilson has played. He has game experience. No mention of Marshawn Lloyd there. So sounds kind of unlikely that Lloyd will play week 1. Keep that in mind as we watch this next clip from Matt LaFleur on the deployment of Josh Jacobs.
So you got Jacobs in March. Did you start right away kind of as a play caller and an innovator offensively, start thinking about, okay, all these different kind of ways I can use him, and what has that process been like for you? Because you're now on the cusp of actually using him.
Yeah, I mean, I would say from a run standpoint, you're going to run your run schemes, and certainly, like, the more experience you get with somebody, you find out what they like, what they're best at. But I would say definitely from a pass standpoint, how you can utilize them in the passing game. Whether some guys are check down guys, some guys are creative route runners, and I think you just got to go through the process and throw some stuff at him and see how he does with it, and it'll be an interesting year to see what he can do.
It'll be an interesting year to see what he can do. We know by now this philosophy that LaFleur has espoused of, hey, our backfields, we use multiple guys. We don't just ride one guy. But he has talked about Josh Jacobs is able to carry a large load. Phrasing. He's able to be a workhorse if you need him to be. If there's no Marshawn Lloyd, and I want you to think about this. I know a lot of people are running to the waiver wire to pick up Emmanuel Wilson, but their offensive coordinator, Adam Stenovich, the other day was talking about Emmanuel Wilson and said, hey, he's come a long way in his pass protection and in his pass catching, but he still has a ways to go. If Green Bay falls behind by multiple scores to the Eagles, which is very possible, this is, pretty good Eagles team, one of the favorites in the NFC, along with the Packers. But if the Packers fall behind multiple scores and they're in pass mode, it's going to be a lot of Josh Jacobs out there. And they've talked about his skill as, a pass catcher. Using him in the passing game. We've seen it in his career, and they've talked about using that. So couldn't end up seeing some PPR scamming there, but one way or another, Josh Jacobs is going to get a lot of work in this game. A.J. Dillon out for the season. Marshawn Lloyd probably not playing. If he does, I'd expect very limited action. Emmanuel Wilson mixing a little bit, but again, not a ton of trust in him, in his pass protection, and in as a third down back, 2-minute drill, catch up stuff, all Josh Jacobs. And, should go without saying, goal line role in that game, going to be Josh Jacobs. I expect a lot of usage for him. More than they want. But they don't have many options right now in that backfield. So I think they'll be okay with using him like a workhorse for 1 or 2 games if necessary, and then, all right, scale it back, keep him healthy do the thing that we always do of just, constantly rotating these guys, keeping them fresh, keeping them healthy. Then once they get into those must-win games at the end of the season, back to the RB1, riding this guy. All right, Miami Dolphins. Here is head coach Mike McDaniel on how he will distribute running back touches.
What are some factors that you'll consider each week as far as running back touches? Obviously, those guys are healthy right now. You have a lot of talent in that room. What are some of the things you think about each week?
Each week, just trying to get individuals opportunities and let those opportunities shape their overall breadth of how many touches they get in the course of a game. I think it's important to make sure that guys have the opportunity to, it doesn't take long for in a game or for you to get a guy a couple carries here, and then the next guy gets a couple carries, and then you feel, okay, well, this dude, it's one of his days. We better lean on this guy and give him more. So I think it's just to get everybody involved is important for me, and then letting the game take its course on whose competitive edge we're going to lean on the most.
This is kind of the same tune we've heard from Mike McDaniel this whole offseason on the running back room. Just giving them opportunities and see what they do with those touches. So this kind of hot hand approach, and this is not a bag defending thing, okay? This is just kind of common sense. A hot hand approach probably favors the best player, the best running back, the most efficient running back, the one who is a real game breaker. I'm talking about Devon Achane. I'm not talking about Raheem Mostert, who's about to turn 33 years old and has his own lengthy injury history. Oh, Devon Achane, he's going to get injured. He's going to get injured. Okay, sure. Maybe. A lot of running backs get injured. He put on 10 pounds this offseason to help combat that. But last season, everyone was saying, oh, Raheem Mostert, going to get injured. Which sounds like a good bet because he had been injured, 5 of the last 6 seasons or something heading into 2023. And then he stays healthy the entire year and he smashes, pays off his ADP in a huge way, league-winning kind of pick. Devon Achane did really well with limited opportunities last season. This year, year 2, in this system, put on some muscle to help him stay healthier. Getting work as a receiver in an offense that's depleted of receiver help right now. Saw him get a deep pass in the preseason. Saw him used in the passing game. This is a guy who's going to get a lot of opportunities, and he's going to do a lot with them because he's a really, really good player. It's not that hard. And Jalen Wright, okay, yeah, he's good. He's nice. I like Jalen Wright. He's no Devon Achane. Raheem Mostert, he's good. He's fine. He's no Devon Achane. A hot hand approach, if it's a true hot hand approach, it will favor Devon Achane. All right. Did I convince you? All right, well, that's on you, player. Tampa Bay. Here is head coach Todd Bowles talking about, I mean, this one is like literally as I speak going viral. People could not believe this clip. Couldn't believe it. A lot of quote tweets with wow and exclamation points and interrobangs, and the people are loving it. They're loving this clip. Should I play it or should I keep teasing it? All right. Head coach Todd Bowles of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers talking about their running back rotation. What's it going to look like, Todd? Tell us.
Do you have a general idea how the running backs, Liam, will use them? You know, Rashad obviously had 330-something touches last year. You've got a little bit of depth there now, Sean and Bucky. So how ideally would you see that kind of breaking down?
I think it'll be a game-by-game basis. You normally go with the hot hand, but since nobody has played yet, obviously Rashad starts, and then we'll kind of go from there and see how the other guys are used.
Wow. What? Everybody say it with me. Wow. That is, you don't love to hear that as a Rachaad White manager. Guy who got 330-ish plus touches last year. Who's going much earlier than Bucky Irving. I think it'll be a game-by-game basis. Now, maybe that sounds worse than it will end up being for Rachaad White. Saying you normally go with a hot hand. Does that mean that they think Rachaad White was the hot hand all of last season? I mean, compared to the rest of that backfield, okay, yeah, that makes sense. They weren't very good. But, yeah, you do not love to hear this. So this involves, obviously, their rookie running back, Bucky Irving, who I've talked about quite a bit. I made a bear case for him. And so my stance has been that Bucky Irving, very, very good with the ball in his hands. Good runner, good vision, smaller guy, but is able to pick up extra yards on runs where, he really gets it going. He plays a little bit bigger than he is. But a smaller guy, and the biggest reason for me fading Bucky Irving, who's coming into the league at about 190 pounds, is he was in the 11th percentile in pass blocking in this running back draft class. Like truly, truly awful at pass protection. The best way that I could explain his pass protection is like a drunk Mr. Bean playing Marco Polo. If that is conveying the image to you, exactly what you're thinking right now, that is what Bucky Irving looked like to me in pass protection in college. In the preseason, we saw a handful, I think about 5 instances of Bucky Irving in pass protection. I mean, he looked better than he was in college. Small sample size, did get beat pretty decently on a couple of them. I wonder what it'll look like against first man, can't say first string. What he'll look like against first string defenders and linebackers. That will be the key to how much does this guy see the field? Because Todd Bowles, we've heard him say, to be a running back here, you have to be good at running, you have to be good at catching, and you have to be good at blocking. And he emphasized blocking several times when he was giving the running back room this speech. And Liam Cohen, coming from the Sean McVay tree, how important pass blocking is to their running backs in that system. It's going to be a really big deal. So if Bucky Irving fails that test, I don't think he sees the field that much. But if Bucky Irving somehow becomes this good or even like decent pass blocking running back, he could get a lot of work because he does what offensive coordinator Liam Cohen likes, which is fast to and fast through the hole. That is Bucky Irving's style. It really does fit well what Liam Cohen wants to do. So it's all going to come down to that pass protection. I don't know if he will be able to pass that test. And I mean, Sean Tucker, their other running back, also looked pretty decent in the preseason. I wonder if he'll see the field at all this season after he didn't see it much in 2023. Maybe Todd Bowles feels differently about him now. But this is a better offensive line, better interior offensive line. And that's going to help Rachaad White look better. That's going to help this entire backfield look better. So maybe Rachaad White, to them, like, what is their bar for a hot hand? And they're getting a pretty good first game against Washington. Like, how good of a game? Like, what is the line that Rachaad White has to stay above to be like, yeah, this guy's got a hot hand? Should have better lanes this year with this offensive line. We saw the rushing yards over expectation, really bad for him last year. It was really bad for the entire Bucs team. So is that, I mean, we know that offensive line plays a bit into that. But also, you know, the other running backs also just pretty bad. But Todd Bowles had a quote on Rachaad White. I believe it was at the owners' meeting. Maybe it was the combine, but I think it was the owners' meeting of there aren't too many running backs like that in the league, is what he said about Rachaad White. Talking about good as a runner, really good in the pass game, and really good as a pass protector. 3 down back. Not many of them like that in this league. I mean, that's saying a lot. And if I can reference one more quote from Todd Bowles from this offseason, he did say we'd like to bring in a guy to take some of the weight off of Rachaad. Seems like Bucky Irving is that guy. And if Bucky Irving, if he becomes a good pass protector, which is a high hill to climb, he is a willing pass blocker, but He is a 190, 195 pound willing pass blocker. But yeah, if he's able to overcome that, he could do a lot of damage because he's a really good runner, and he's really nice with the ball in his hands. All right, let's end running back with maybe the shortest clip ever on this podcast. This is offensive coordinator for the Arizona Cardinals, Drew Petzing, on running back James Conner. Don't sneeze or you'll miss it.
Look, James is the bell cow in that room. That's not a surprise to anyone.
I told you it was short. Okay. Yeah, he's the bell cow. They've been saying that quite a bit. But some people still, for some reason, think Trey Benson's getting 50% of this backfield, or he's going to take over this backfield. Wake up, my friend. This is James Conner's backfield. Until. No, take away that until. Unless something happens. I don't want that bad mojo out there. Unless something happens. Now, it has happened every season with James Conner. Hopefully it won't. Really good running back. They love James Conner. Drew Petzing, head coach Jonathan Gannon. I mean, they are all about James Conner. He's going to be their bell cow. Just like them. Did you not hear what the man just said? He's going to be their bell cow. He's their bell cow. Okay? He said everybody knows it. That should include you. Bell cow, James Conner. Wide receivers. We will start with Green Bay. This is head coach Matt LaFleur on wide receiver Christian Watson.
Matt, you didn't have Christian for the opener last year, right? If I remember correctly.
Watson? Yeah, I don't believe so.
Using last names, I'm not very good today. So how different is it to have him having gotten through training camp healthy, and what does that do for your offense to actually be able to hit the ground running with him?
Yeah, I think, we all have seen how explosive and dynamic he is as a playmaker, whether we're handing off a jet sweep like we did a couple years ago in Chicago or, in the passing game, making great catches. So he is an important part of what we do. He's a big, physical, fast guy, and not many of those guys exist. So we certainly are a better offense when he's at full strength.
Okay. Christian Watson stayed healthy for all of training camp, which, it's kind of wild how you hear that and you're like, wow, that's incredible. It's the norm for so many players, but it's been a problem for Christian Watson. And this is a guy who, not the best route runner in the world, but a very dangerous weapon used in the passing game, also on, some sweeps, really fast, really strong guy, like Matt LaFleur says. This Green Bay offense is going to be a steamroller. What an array of weapons they have. My goodness. Some real weapons. Yeah, this offense is going to cook like that cartoon rat. Philadelphia. This is offensive coordinator Kellen Moore on their new wide receiver, Jahan Dotson.
First time speaking to you since the Dotson trade. How did that change things for you when you add a contributor at that point in the summer?
Yeah, obviously, I think everyone who went through the draft process saw the great talent that he was, and we were really, really excited about that opportunity. He'll be a great piece to our offensive process, and excited to let him kind of build that role as we go. Obviously, when you come in, during the season, I think you let him just keep growing, and we'll keep finding where that role presents itself. But he'll be certainly a nice aspect of this thing, and he'll be heavily involved.
Heavily involved. Will he though? Kellen Moore. The Eagles historically, now different offensive coordinators, yes, but historically have not used their wide receiver 3 under Nick Sirianni. If Jahan Dotson is their wide receiver 3, you would think. You would think from these comments he'll be heavily involved. Yeah, probably wide receiver 3 comment there. But excited to let him kind of build that role as we go. We'll keep finding where that role presents itself. Yeah, new addition. Got to get used to the offense. And there are concerns from people that he is maybe not a great receiver. We'll see. I know Matt Harmon has the candle lit. The light is on. That's 2 lights. If it's a candle and a light, I don't know what we're talking about in terms of wattage. I'm no candle scientist. I'm no light major. But we'll see. We'll see. Whenever I have concerns about a player, we'll see. Indianapolis Colts. This is head coach Shane Steichen on wide receivers A.D. Mitchell and Alec Pierce.
What have you seen from A.D. Mitchell just in his time filling in that slot role so far?
Yeah, he's done a hell of a job for us. Obviously, getting him in the draft, great get by Chris, getting him in the draft. But we talked about early, that one-on-one explosiveness that he brings is big for our football team. So he's done a nice job there, and like I said, we can put our guys wherever, in the slot, outside. We move those guys around by game plan. So we're excited to have him, though.
You talked about Alec having one of the best training camps that you've seen from him. What is his potential this year?
I think his potential's high. He made a lot of plays in training camp. We got to carry that over to the season. And he's got speed. He can run. He made contested catches all through training camp, and we need those to show up on Sunday for sure.
Shane Steichen, offensive coordinator, Jim Bob Cooter, beat reporters, all have talked about Alec Pierce's great camp. Still don't think he's a very good wide receiver, but he had a good camp. His potential's high. Made a lot of plays in training camp. We got to carry that over into the season. Is he saying that he's a preseason star? That he hasn't been getting it done during the regular season? And hey, buddy, we want to see it this time? Am I reading too much into that? Coupled with the comments made by Jim Bob Cooter on September 4th. Alec Pierce is continuing to improve. Kept rising to the occasion in camp. Made some big plays. Continuing to improve. What is this? His 3rd year in the league now. A.D. Mitchell. Also been making a lot of plays. They like his explosiveness, which is supposed to be Alec Pierce's calling card. But this is a staff that spoke very glowingly of A.D. Mitchell after they drafted him during this offseason. They really like what he can do at the top of those deep routes, breaking off. Just need Anthony Richardson to connect with him, to be accurate. And we'll see when Josh Downs comes back. He did not practice today. Shane Steichen said he's progressing well, though. But opportunity for A.D. Mitchell, who they used in the slot during the preseason with Josh Downs out. That could be really, really juicy role for him. Could be a really nice value where he was picked in drafts this season. Okay, one more clip. And then we made it home. Here is Seattle Seahawks head coach Mike McDonald on wide receiver DK Metcalf.
Coach DK is going to be up in a second. You have to face him last year as the coordinator. What was unique about him? You were trying to game plan for him.
I'll speak to just my experience of him and being here for the last 6 months. I mean, he's just a beast, man. I mean, I've told you this, but you have to account for where he's at any given point, and we got a couple guys like that, but DK is definitely the top of the list, on people that can go take it to the house on any play, whether it's a catch and run, speak of the devil, whether it's a catch and run or taking the top off the defense. So we hopefully Denver has a hard time finding him on Sunday.
Every time Mike McDonald talks about DK Metcalf, he looks like he can't even comprehend the fact that such an NFL player exists. It's really nice to see. It's pretty cool. But yeah, DK Metcalf in this Ryan Grubb offense where they're going to run it more than people think they're going to run it. They're not just going to pass it just because, people think, oh man, that Washington offense, just like pass. He's going to come to Seattle. He's going to pass. That is not the case. Mike McDonald has said that they want to establish the run. DK Metcalf was recently talking about how they found out very quickly when Ryan Grubb arrived that, yeah, this offense is going to run the ball. But that doesn't mean that their wide receivers can't be productive in fantasy. Well, first of all, they're not going to run on every play. But even if they're more run heavy, Ryan Grubb in these offenses, when they do pass the ball, I'm making it sound like they only pass at like a 20% clip. That's not the case. They pass enough. It's fine. But it's high value passes. He is scheming these wide receivers like so open on these passing plays. And they have talked about wanting to move DK Metcalf around, kind of hiding him from the defense. All this typical Ryan Grubb controlled chaos stuff that we talked about in the last show when we talked about in the Flag Plant show with Kenneth Walker of there are going to be a lot of explosives for the Seattle Seahawks. We just need this offensive line to hold up. Could be a tall task. Could be a tall order. Abe Lucas, right tackle, probably going to be out for a little while. That's not a great start. So Ryan Grubb, though, offensive line guy originally. Hopefully he can raise the level of play of that offensive line, but you still need some talent there. So that is the X factor this year in Seattle. That offensive line, can they give Geno Smith time to throw? Can they help Kenneth Walker get 1,600 rushing yards this season? We'll see. All right. That wraps it up for the show. Thank you so much for hanging out, listening, watching, however you consume. Very cool of you. Really appreciate it. This thing is growing, man. This thing is growing, and I appreciate all of you. And it's a lot of work, but it's worth it. It's cool. I love it. And if you could just do me a favor, if you could if you want to leave a comment, cool. I have a guy that just comments algorithm on every video. It's pretty great. And leave a nice review, maybe. That'd be cool. And subscribe. Don't you want to be in the first 1,000 subscribers of the Coach Speak Index podcast? You know it. You know you want to. You could say, man, I was in the first 1,000. Isn't that cool? Do it, or I'm going to sick Judy Dench's Denchman on you. All right? I hate to get nasty there. I really do. I wanted to play it the nice way. I tried to be Mr. Nice Guy and let you do it out of the kindness of your own heart. But look what you made me do. You forced my hand, and I had to use that hand, the finger on that hand, to dial up Judy Dench and say, hey, Chuck in Connecticut, he didn't subscribe. Gonna need you to send the Denchman over. All right, cool. Appreciate y'all. Be safe. Enjoy this NFL season. And Sarah, take us out.